All right. Welcome, everybody. Just to be clear, the character animation talk is next door, so if you're here for that, you're in the wrong place. But you are here for Unity in the Wild, which is intended to be cool uses of Unity, or maybe things that you don't normally think of when you think of Unity. So stuff that's not a game. It might be an art installation, or like a research project, or just a really cool thing. So let's get started. Oh, maybe I should hit play. Well, the joke has been lost. There's a cat that eventually appears. So when you think of Unity, I think there's a couple different ways to slice it when you're trying to figure out who's using it and why. And the first way is to think of what are people building with Unity. And the answer to that, in my mind, is obviously games. I think most people at this conference are game developers, maybe retail or web or mobile or social, but they're making games of some kind. So in this room, my guess is there's probably fewer game developers. But raise your hand if you are primarily a game developer. Okay, put your hands down. Raise your hand if you're primarily a researcher / academic. And then raise your hand if you're other, architectural, viz. Oh, okay. You other people interest me. So the other way to slice it is to kind of to think of, well, who is using the product? I think the easy way to do that is just to pull the fire alarm and then take a photo of half of the conference outside. And it's probably the other half is on the other side of the street, I guess. And I think the who is interesting to me because David talks a lot about democratizing. To me, that's interesting because you can have somebody who might be a mixed media artist who deals a lot with video and audio, maybe is quite technical and uses Max MSP or some other software. And now they can actually go a step farther and make something with Unity with some more interactivity. Or maybe you have somebody who's primarily an artist, but they can cobble together enough code with Unity to actually make their game. So I think that the who is really interesting because you have people that are making games, but they're making games from a totally different perspective of somebody who's indoctrinated in the way of thinking about games, who might just make a better platformer or a better shooter. There are people out there, obviously, on the forums who are, I want to make the best FPS I can, but there are people out there who are maybe a graphic artist, and now they can actually make something interactive. And I'll show some of that stuff later. And I think the third thing to think about with Unity is kind of like sort of the why. Like, what are they using Unity for in their project? Maybe their project is primarily research and it's a computer vision problem, but they're using like the 3D capabilities to just display something. And I think the commonality between all these things is interactivity, where it's different to present something in a static form, where here's my design for a roller coaster, whatever that might be in the abstract. Here's my piece, my art. And then it's one thing to actually make that something that you can experience and interact with, where you can, instead of have to explain something or present somebody like a static words or recording or audio, you can actually give them something and then step back as they begin to interact with it themselves. And that's kind of what most of these things are that are not games. There's some element of interaction there. So this talk will have me giving some videos of cool stuff that I've found and why I think it's cool. And then I'll step down and we have 3 teams up here to demo their stuff and talk actually about it, because I can't answer questions about all the stuff I'm going to show, but they can answer questions about their stuff. So I'm going to start with things that are primarily games, and then I'll move more towards the non-games. And this has audio, which I will turn up maybe. All right, one second. Let me hijack the Mac real quick. Oh dear. Well, it was a great video. Let me make sure I have audio. So there should be audio now. Yes? No? Well, it's not super important. It will be much more boring and quiet. Yeah. So I'll just talk over the video. So this is a project that's been posted on the Unity forums, and it's people with a very technical background, where one of the guys was doing a lot of audio interactive stuff, and he was actually using some Unity before that. So it's 3 people on this project. One of them is actually a test pilot for a flight suit company. So it's not people that think wingsuits are cool, it's people that actually do wingsuit stuff. And then the second part of this video cuts to their project in Unity to simulate wingsuit flight. So it's still a game, it's still presented in kind of a game context, but it's a very different control mechanic, it's a very different experience of playing a game. It's the kind of game somebody would make if they knew a lot about wingsuits, and then they were enabled somehow through technology to make sort of an interactive expression of that game. And this stuff is the most amazing. I don't know. Has anyone in here actually done base jumping or wingsuit flying? And who would like to? So yeah, this is this is kind of the power of something like Unity, where somebody with a domain knowledge of, they actually understand this stuff and they understand what makes it cool. And I was actually involved with them a little bit earlier when it was like a different group, and they actually had outlined what was important about simulating wingsuit flying was that there's these things that are hard to do in actual wingsuit flying. Like, one is location. You can only really pick so many locations. And then two is just risk. It's like if you fail in wingsuit flying in real life, you just die. Where in a simulation of it, you can clearly try things that were not normally possible. So here's their actual game made with Unity. And they do have an active thread in the forums. This fascinates me for a few reasons. One is that they're obviously making very heavy usage of what, as a game developer, I might view as default assets, but it allows them to not have to worry about how to handle terrain, how to handle collisions. They just pop in the terrain, they start painting, and they can worry about the important stuff of their project, which is how do you make this feel more and more like actual wingsuit flying, which I think is demonstrated quite well here. I mean, it's an amazingly expressive control system, but I'm sure 90% of their engineering effort was on answering questions about how the thing controls and not answering questions about how are we going to render the distant terrain with enough performance that it doesn't slow things down. So in my mind, this is kind of the ultimate example of Unity to enable somebody who might not otherwise be able to get this far in their project. But I don't think there's a publicly playable version yet. It is kind of hard to control, but it's also completely awesome. And they kind of demonstrate what is hard about real wingsuit flying right here. So that's Volo Wingsuit. And another artist I want to highlight, so this is kind of the other example in my mind where someone who is primarily a graphic artist or sort of a mixed media artist, and Alice Effect, who is actually lives here in Montreal, and uses Unity to make games that I think are quite different from the kind of games that somebody who grew up primarily playing games or primarily thinking, I want to make a game. He thinks of game or interactive stuff in kind of like a secondary level, so let me pick something that will maybe work. Oh, I should not have checked full screen. 1 second. Try this again. We'll get there. Technology will hopefully keep up. Sorry, AV guys. Is there any way to make it not green? All right, I'm just going to pull the cable and start. Oh, sweet. So this is somebody who made what is you could view as a game, but if you were to show this to somebody who classifies themselves as a gamer, they might not fully understand it. Oh, and now my mouse is not where it should be. So it's technically a platformer. You have to get from A to B, but it's an isometric world, which doesn't immediately make sense, and I'm disoriented already, and I've already failed. So you can tell at a glance that this guy is primarily a graphic artist. He's not a game developer per se. You wouldn't see this stuff and go, oh, I mean, that's a really fun game. I played it a lot. But you would see it and you would think about kind of the nature of perception, the nature of the world, and maybe kind of his art style here. And again, I actually interviewed this guy for a radio show, and yeah, he's very grateful that something like Unity exists where he can express himself without having to worry about the complexities of, sort of normal game development. Like, this guy couldn't, actually I can't, fun fact, couldn't compile like a DirectX something to make anything. I couldn't make a spinning cube in DirectX, but I can make games in Unity. So this is Alice Effect, and he's got a bunch of projects on his page, and he has a bunch of his artwork on his page, and to him, games are just another way to express his ideas about form and function and the nature of perception and all these things. So that's Alice Effect. Here's another example, Mario von Rickenbach, who is sort of primarily an artist, and what I think Unity allows you to do is somebody who has this vision, who might be technical and obviously smart, but with Unity they can go ahead and take the next step and make a 3D realization of that vision. So this is that piece of art in a 3D world with Unity. And here's another of his projects, which is made for an animation film festival. And this is all one guy. One guy did the sound, the music, the art, and then all the interactive stuff. And again, you can see him leaning on some of the things that you might just consider drag and drop, like the trail renderer there is just probably the trail renderer component. And I think it's amazing that the notion of drag and drop effects becoming realized in a project. And the game is about collecting eyeballs. So to me, it's fascinating that Unity enables somebody who has a cohesive vision for something to make that thing actually interactive, where this could be an animation piece, but it's interesting to note that even while we watch it, even if we know in the back of our heads that this is an interactive piece, it sort of changes our perception of it, where if I just told you that this is an animation somebody made, you might be interested in it, but you can kind of put yourself in the player's shoes even when you're kind of not playing it. But yeah, this is Mario van Rickenbach. He has a bunch of other projects on his page. They're all made with Unity, and there's some really cool stuff in there. So moving on to things that are not, they're like less games. Yeah, an Invisible Violin. So this is Shift Control, who unfortunately I guess shut down recently. But there's text that explains the video. So it's kind of an interactive installation piece where there's a message here. It's kind of like a serious game in the direction of there's game-like elements to engage you, but really it wants to impart some sort of message. And Shift Control's done a bunch of amazing stuff with Unity. They're here running some of the stuff at the show visually. And if you haven't checked out their stuff, definitely, I think it's shiftcontrol.dk. But yeah, just Google them. You'll find it. And they have a lot of amazing installation pieces and visualizers and a lot of really cool interactions made with Unity. So this is a project by one of Jesse Schell's students, the guy who gave the awesome character talk. And it's a serious game, but it actually looks like a zombie survivor game at first. But the serious game element is that it's designed by researchers at Lockheed Martin, where they can design simulations and then see how you react to them with real-time tracking of all of your movements. So it's kind of, you think it's just a game, but really it's sort of you're a mouse in a maze, and they're actually watching you to see how you react. See if I can skip ahead to... So yes, this is kind of a zombie survivor, there are elements, but really what they want to do is they want to see how people interact in a multiplayer environment to different threats. So it's kind of a devious appearance of a research project. Kind of makes me wonder if the Left 4 Dead is really just training by the government. So here's something that's completely in a different direction, where we're now kind of in the realm of interactive art installation. Kind of hard to see on the screen, but there's somebody in the foreground walking by this building and then stopping to investigate it, and it's really dark on that screen. Sorry about that. So there's a 3D projection of a dog, which is powered by Unity, and they have a webcam up above looking down, and then the dog reacts to people as they walk by. And this guy actually did like a total double take and then now he's kind of walking up to the dog, and it's reacting to him. And they've moved this art installation around, and it's a project called Sniff, if you want to Google it. It's kind of hard to give URLs to people in the audience. And then here's their data view with the Unity view and then all their webcam stuff being parsed. And a lot of these projects, I'll drop some keywords at the end of these slides so you guys can have some starting points if you want to interact with Unity in ways that are not kind of built into Unity. And then on this note, I just wanted to share a video that surfaced yesterday.
Hey guys, it's 3 hours after the European launch of the Kinect, and I got one just at lunchtime when the doors opened at 10 a.m. Here it is. And I just now got it to work with the completely open source driver. I don't actually own an Xbox, so this is not a sniffer, it's not a man in the middle, it's completely autonomous running under Linux. The code is open source, and you can grab it at my Git repo. So here it goes. And sometimes it messes up because, well, what the hell, I just finished it, but there we go. That's RGB and that's depth. Hi there.
So here we have a device, whoops, I just wanted to stop that.
Hey guys,
here we have a device, the Kinect, which is $150, which has 2 cameras, RGB and depth, and this guy, somehow in 3 hours with just a computer, reverse engineered it, and now he's open sourced the stuff. So I would love to see that source code show up in a plugin for Unity. So that's just kind of a please somebody in this room who knows how to do that stuff, make that happen. Because I mean, a lot of these sort of art installations require that kind of stuff, and there's a really cheap way to do it. And here's another projected environment. And this was kind of a more abstract art piece. So it's kind of hard to tell in the video, but what it is, it's aluminum, and then there's a projected surface. So they actually have multiple projectors projecting stuff onto it. And then when you modify the actual surface by removing a piece of aluminum, it modifies the 3D model, and then kind of vice versa. If you remove that polygon on the 3D model, it just stops projecting light onto the surface to make it appear like it goes dark. So there's somebody very tediously modeling something. And another kind of augmented reality-esque projected surface is Infested Area, which projected a bunch of critters, and then they actually had piezo sensors on the floor, so when you walked by them, they would kind of scatter away from your footsteps. And something like this, if you weren't A, aware that it was there, and B, if you were not entirely sober, would be completely awesome. So yeah, they had a bunch of sensors on the floor, so as you walked through, they would try to avoid your footsteps. And then people walk through here in a second, so you can kind of see it. Yeah, I don't know how I would react to that if I didn't know it was there. Kind of distrusting of reality enough anyway. Of course, the problem here is their shadows kind of make them not exist. And then finally, this is actually just a sort of an example connection between Max MSP, which is a toolkit-y thing for audio-video performance, live mixing, where there's an audio synth involved in here, but this stuff on the left is a Unity window, and the sort of inputs to that window are being controlled via OSC, Open Sound Control, so that it would kind of augment a live performance of some kind. So it's just kind of connecting 2 worlds together in a really simple way. Because if you can express yourself in Unity, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with physics and everything else. Just to drop some buzzwords, if you want to start Googling that stuff, OSC is Open Sound Control, and there are a lot of, you can actually implement OSC via .NET, because all it requires is sockets. So you can actually implement OSC in Unity without any kind of plugin, which would work on standalone, but not the web player, because sockets don't really work in the web player. Receiving sockets doesn't work. And this is just an example control service. This is Touch OSC, which is for iPhone, iPad, where you can rig up all these sliders, you can define your own control surfaces, and then send them to Unity. And I've actually done that just as a quick test, and it's really easy to do. So if you wanted to augment your live performance or use OSC for something, that's just one technology available. Then here's something done by one of our guys 2 years ago.
Hey Internet. So in keeping with my promise when I made my Power Glove 20th Anniversary Edition, I've been spending some time hooking it up to additional games. So today I'm going to show you our game Off-Road Velociraptor Safari, played with the Power Glove. I'm also going to be exhibiting the Power Glove at Maker Faire Bay Area next weekend at the San Mateo Expo Center in San Mateo. So if you're in the Bay Area and want to...
So I don't know if he explains what he does in this video, but he took an old Power Glove and he gutted it and he put in accelerometer controls and then Bluetooth and then hooked all that up to one of our games. So it's basically just custom hardware built for a Unity interface, and here's him playing the game. So it's not the ideal interface, certainly, but it's really cool to see hardware hacking. We were going to have a party one year at GDC where we wanted to hardware hack breathalyzers and then have a drinking game that knew how drunk you were. So if you were extremely drunk, the game would be very easy, and if you were not so drunk, the game would be much, much harder. I think there are probably legal issues with making a commercial game that was a drinking game. But imagine if the game knew how much you weighed and was like, player 2, take 2 shots. You're way too sober. Anyway, and then sort of a buzzword for that, if you're not aware, is Arduino is a hardware prototyping platform that makes it really easy to make custom hardware and then interface with it in a sane, fast way. So that's all the stuff I have to show, just in terms of if you kind of look out there on the internet for a couple hours, you'll start to bump into this really cool stuff. And from now on, we will have a couple live demos. So sort of whoever I said was first, the live webcam demo. And while they're setting their stuff up, hardware-wise, I can take any questions as best I am able, or if anybody in the room can answer the question that's asked, that'd be great. We have microphones somewhere. Maybe not. Oh, yeah, we do have microphones. So yeah, if you have any question or comment, or if you want to say, I made this really cool thing too, wait for the microphone so it's recorded. That'd be awesome. So, yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. Actually, the other busy people. Hey, can I mute? The other people have to go first. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go ahead.
Great presentation. Thanks. I'd like to know if you know about any installation that would have used Unity in a context different than the type of museum or interactive kiosk installation we've seen, something that has bigger deployment like architectural mapping or, I don't know, following a crowd or something that involves more people and greater spaces?
I know there's a lot of projects now that are involving movie theaters because a lot of people are already in the movie theater. And there's some Pong games up on the big screen that read the position of the entire crowd. So everyone in the theater kind of says, move the Pong paddle to the right. But I'm not aware of anything like drastically larger. Anybody in the room aware of such things? I know there's a lot of like 3D building projection stuff that's kind of happening now, but I don't know necessarily that it's powered by Unity. I mean, I'm sure you could just use any technology for that.
Thanks. Do you have a name for the Pong game in the movie theaters?
No, but I think if you just look sort of for like interactive movie theater stuff, I believe somebody whispered in my ear that Tron was going to have some stuff like that. But I mean, just to derail a little bit while these guys get set up, I don't know why movie theaters don't even have like Wi-Fi points. Half the people in the theater have smartphones. Why can't I connect and play games and then like there's a local leaderboard up on the movie theater screen? That would be amazing.
Thanks.
Somebody in the room should do that because you make a lot of money. You guys ready?
Yeah, should we take over?
Yeah, I'll be quiet for a while, and yeah.
Is this microphone? Is this one work? Yeah, okay. You want to start us off? So go ahead and introduce.
Yeah, so I'm Allison Tinney from Mixamo, and this is Tyler Bryant. And we're going to show you a quick game demo that Tyler built using Mixamo and Unity and this PrimeSense camera. So first, I'll just give you a quick overview of what Mixamo is in case you don't know. So Mixamo is an online animation provider for you guys using Unity. We do automatic retargeting for your characters with the motions online. We've actually integrated Unity into our Prime business. We're using the web player to actually preview motions so users can customize their motion online, and we preview it using the Unity web player. And actually, we've added recently some animal motions, which are also customizable. So you can actually, we have, as you can see, some dragon animation and models, and you can actually change the flight pattern. If you want the dragon to be flying upwards or forwards, you can do that. So yeah, so that's a little bit about what Mixamo is, and Tyler's going to show you the game.
Yeah, so first of all, it was really exciting to see all the other applications. I wish I'd seen the Power Glove at the Maker Faire. So part of my background was doing algorithms for, this is kind of another way of Unity in the wild, I was doing algorithms for navigation, so for inertial sensors, and we were making a game controller, and last year at Unite, I met Stefano Carasso, who's the CTO at Mixamo. And so we put together an art installation. We wanted to do something that was completely 3D everything. So we had the 2 projectors with the polarized lenses and the 3D camera. So we had a Kinesta camera. This is a PrimeSense today. And I want to show a little video of our installation. It was also at the Maker Faire. Where's the, sorry, wrong one. So here's Stefano. He's giving the talk next door right now. I don't think I clicked on the... Recognize the islands. So that was the first installation that we had set up, and we also showed it at the Gray Area Foundation in San Francisco. And now I'm going to show this is using Unity. So the technology here, we've got the cameras, just like Kinect. So it's it actually gives you a depth. So you have the RGB plus depth, and we're using it with OMEC Interactive makes a middleware which is basically changing the camera data into a skeleton. So it maps it onto a skeleton that you can use then to retarget however you like. Where's the... Oh, sorry. it's complaining about the system clock. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I can run it without the. I don't know what's going on with the system clock. But, so I'm developing it in Windows, but now there's a build for OS X with the Kinect camera this morning. Somebody put up you showed the first one after 3 hours. Today there's an OS X build, so I can't wait to develop on the Mac. I think I need to is today November? Should I go back in time or something? Does anybody know what to do about a system clock error?
Of course, our OMEC guy left at like 9 a.m. this morning. You want me to try restarting?
Yeah, I guess we'll restart. Yeah, I'm going to abort for now, but come check it out at our booth, the Mixamo booth. Let whoever else go next. If anybody has questions, I'd love to answer, and we'll try to set it up if it does. By correcting the time zone, it could be, yeah, that's a good idea. So, I hate DRM, by the way. So, I saw a question.
Anybody have any questions?
Could you repeat the name of the camera, please?
So this one is a PrimeSense camera, but at the installation we had used a Kinesta camera. And there are two main different kinds of depth sensor right now technology. Either structured light, which is basically emitting a scanning pattern that then it can use to determine depth. And there's another one. Boy. And there's another, the Kinesta is a time of flight where it actually emits a signal, like a time-based signal that then it can determine depth that way. So those are kind of the main tech. Kinesta was just purchased by Microsoft, the camera that we were using before.
This is more of a question, not so much in the motion capture, but of the sort of 3D element. I go to Iowa State University. This is kind of a shout out for anybody. We have a virtual reality cave right now called the C6 using VR Juggler. And if anybody knows any way to interface Unity with VR Juggler, I'd greatly appreciate it. But what did you guys use to get that sort of
The interface into Unity?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've actually done several progressions. So that one was actually using an OSC based. So we ran a separate app that was doing sending OSC messages from the camera into Unity. We would have a separate application that was actually sending network messages to the Unity game. So that was kind of cool because we could actually run without any plugins. Just not in the web player. But then now what we're doing is we just integrate the DLL directly, so it's only working on Windows right now. Oh, sure. I don't know if that helps your question, but I'm extremely interested in the caves. I'd love to work on one. Where are you? Where's the cave? Ames?
Hello.
Hello?
Here.
Oh, hi.
I was looking into the OMEC technology, but I spoke to them and they were charging a crazy amount of money for the license. Did you?
I don't really know if
for that or
so for us for the art installation we were it was an evaluation that they provided to us for free, and then but we were making a more developed product and we have an agreement with them, royalty-based agreement.
Okay.
So,
okay. So they're open for that.
I can't speak for them, but you should talk to them. Yeah, I think they'll be open to other opportunities. However it works.
Do you know any free open source?
I know that there are researchers developing stuff, but I don't think it's at the same level. So their tracker is quite good. I think it's better than Kinect, but I haven't really. It's hard to know exactly side by side. Soon we'll know.
Okay. What about cameras? Which one do you recommend?
So the field of view is my biggest issue with the PrimeSense. It's good. It works fast, and it's nice. It's just USB powered. You don't have any special extra power requirements. But the Kinesta had a much better field of view, so you could be closer. So especially for dev work, it's nice to be close to the computer, because I would often have to get up and do something and then come back to the computer, and my office isn't like a living room 12 feet deep or something, so the field of view matters a lot. So I imagine the next generations will see a lot wider field of view. But I think the PrimeSense is competitive price and
What's the price for that?
well, I mean, the Kinect is 150 with everything, right? Like, I'm sure that is, they're trying to get money back later. I don't know. I don't know how much it costs, really.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, everybody. I'm really disappointed. We had it working right out there. So come and check us out at the table. I'll set it up.
Excuse me. Okay, it's actually, excuse my voice because that party last night was a little bit, forgive me. It's a small world. We actually were at the Makers Faire and saw that installation. We saw it, we instantly said, that must be done in Unity. See if we can get this thing going here. Okay, so when Matthew initially fielded the room, he kind of asked the group, were there academics, were there people making arts installations, or were they game developers? Well, we happen to be a group of academic game makers making art installations, so we didn't know which one to raise the hand. But we are a group of thesis students from California State East Bay, and I'd like to introduce my thesis team. My name is Elias Fulmore, of Claire Lewis, Jatine Bakhta, and Kat Reyes. And a missing member is James Tacker, who couldn't get a chance to make it. We don't have much of a formal presentation, but we will just briefly explain what the project is. We're all new to Unity and just recently started developing in Unity in the last 4 or 5 months or so. It's a 180-degree projected video game that once you play the game, you learn your personality. And when playing the game, it's not about answering questions that take you out of the gameplay experience. We wanted to say, using psychoanalytics, how much information about a person's decision-making styles, their personality, their aggression versus aversion, risk, these kind of nature, how much psychoanalytic information could we cull from a 15-minute game experience? The game experience will also include generative music, where we're attaching multiple tracks to various objects within Unity. And a funny place where we get a lot of exploration with being able to attach multiple tracks is actually the bone rigs of our characters, which can be recognized as individual objects, and then we can attach several tracks to these objects. And so, for example, if you were to say jump, a bass line might fall out of the song, or you go and hit a platform and then violins may trigger something. And so through the use of psychoanalytics and generative music, we want to create a game that at the end of the game experience, you get a unique song that was basically composed through your gameplay, and you're going to get a readout about your personality. So utilizing things like color tests, color psychology, something called the cube test, partially pop psychology, partially something legitimate, but nonetheless, we want to get somebody an engaging experience at the end of the day. And I'll briefly show you a Google SketchUp of what the installation will look like. See, the user would sit in the middle as 3 projectors kind of create a 180 experience. We'll be using a Muplex splitter to accomplish this. The actual chair itself rotates. Ideally, we would like to create a situation where it's a platform game and you can see the entire level at once. And we want to see how this will affect strategy and things of that nature. There will be characters that will be spawned in the game that are not necessarily enemies or foes. It depends on the decisions you made in the beginning of the game that will affect how these characters affect you. And so then your interactions with these characters will then hopefully give us some legitimate data about your decision-making styles. Yeah, and the dimensions on this installation will be about 10 by 10 by 10. Anything else I should do? That's pretty much it, Right? Okay, so basically we wanted to open the floor for any questions about the project and entertain any ideas. Yes, somebody over there? Sir?
Hello. I was just wondering if you could elaborate more on what you're doing on the music side, how you're doing the surround, what equipment you might be using there.
Now, we're exploring a lot of possibilities like Max MSP, Pure Data, and things of that nature, but we've actually found the fact that the new Unity actually can hold up to 250 tracks. We found an interesting way to create what would at least give the impression of a generative music experience by playing multiple tracks simultaneously and then unmuting them. And so having things when a collider or interaction with a particular object in the game would then cause that element of the game to come in. So if you're familiar with like a beat production, you know about upbeats and downbeats, which essentially is a mathematical equation where you can go double time, single time. So these things, for example, if a character got hit, you go from these things lay on top of each other. All of these things would run simultaneously. So for example, if the character got hit, all of a sudden the tempo would slow down. It would seem to a person who's not familiar with how music works that the actual tempo of the song played, but the implied rhythm is there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Two sub-questions, actually. Tell us more about multi-projection, how you do it, and if you have to use any warping or blending or even asymmetric frustum correction techniques in Unity.
Can you repeat that last part?
I will gladly. Please tell us more about multi-projection, how you do it, if you have the need for multiple viewports, and if you have to do warping and blending between your projectors. And if so, how you do it, please.
Our game has, we're slipping between 3D and a 2.5D. So some parts of the game will actually be in true exploratory 3D space. And for that, we are using, we're splitting the screen into 3 viewports. And then in the mock-up, you could see the projectors overhead. What's really interesting when we go into the platform scroller versions, it actually wraps perfectly just around. And for ease of use, Matrox Splitter across 3 screens. We chose not to do a curve. The square of the piece will help us make it portable, easier to build, but it also will help us align the seams. At Cal State East Bay, we have been working with a professor in the computer science department, William Thibault? Yeah, I just call him Professor Thibault, who does the CommCore lab, and he has amazing experience with projection. You can always find him online too, and he does full surround projection from just, he can do it out of a cast-off projector and create almost a planetarium. So, was that all the sections of your question? Do you have other? That was it? Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, that's so one of the challenges facing that is when you have 3 projections, you're going to have 3 times as much processing power. So the CPU usage is one of the challenges we have to figure out ways to get around. But we figured out easy. We figured out some ways that we can kind of fake the system to do it.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dave Pentecost. I'm from New York City, and I'm a survivor of the notorious MSM, mainstream media. I spent about 20 years locked up in windowless editing rooms. So, and I've got a better project now. So as a result of all this, I'm asking the question, can we change our view? Our last presenters are starting to do that. We spend all of our time looking at a little rectangle when our vision is more like an oval. But the world that we inhabit is really like a hemisphere on top of our ground plane. This is the church right down the street. I shot this a couple of nights ago. And if you guys were at the party, you might recognize this. So how do we get there? How do we get to a different way of looking at all this stuff? Well, I'll tell you a story. This is the story of how we're getting there. We're taking the last empty piece of land on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and we're building a community science center with a planetarium, as you'll see. So this is a building that goes through to 3 different streets, and the part of this building that's going to house the planetarium is the structure of it's almost built now. We broke ground in July after a team of mainly women, since this is based on a girls' club. A team of very smart women have been working for 14 years to get to this point. So now I get to work on the planetarium and have that place to play. This is near the East River by the housing project. So we're on this kind of cultural divide between the gentrified and hip and very creative East Village and the housing projects. There's still a lot of housing in the neighborhood. So we combine a lot of the artistic community in the neighborhood with kind of a hip-hop culture. And so we're going to bring this into Unity and bring this into the Dome. It just tells a little bit about the building. 30,000 square feet, that's our playground. The city made us get a developer partner, so they're building subsidized, 50% subsidized housing above us. And we've got a theme here. I'll take a little digression. Curved aluminum. The dome will be curved aluminum, but also we're taking a 58 Airstream trailer, turning it into a podcasting studio. This is what I got to work on in the cold when I get back. So we go from happy 50s camping to demolition to now it's completely stripped. I've been thinking about putting a little dome in here, but we're going to have a big one to play in. Okay, but where does that circular view come in? Well, we've got this 30-foot digital full dome theater, and the simplest way to project into this is with a single fisheye lens projector. You can do it with multiple projectors, then you have issues of blending and matching. So we're still shopping for our projection, but we're pretty sure we'll go with a single fisheye. So if you have a single fisheye, well, it's not this kind of projection. They don't do this kind of optical projection very much anymore. For the last 10 years, planetariums have been using all digital equipment for both stars and other presentations which are given in planetariums. So we've got the astronomy covered. There's an astronomy engine called UniView. So I'm not intending to do astronomy in Unity. I want to do everything else. I want to play games. I want to teach. We want to do live performance. So this is kind of a simulation. These are a couple of stills from a show called Maya Skies. That's an all-CG production about Maya astronomy and mythology produced out of the Chabot Center in Oakland. A couple of different stills. So you can see this is not your father's astronomy lesson. This is not the planetarium that you may remember going to. I don't know if you've been to any lately. This is after the hero twins destroyed the gods of the underworld. But first, before we get there, we're about a year and a half away from having this dome to play in. And basically, I'm here today to say anybody that wants to come playing in our dome and anybody that has some great ideas for games that can be put into the dome, get in contact with me because I think it's going to be an interesting place to play with Unity. The mini dome, I got a small grant, I mentioned in a session yesterday, a small grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities, their digital humanities startup grant. And they were convinced, as I am, that There's a lot of potential to do programs other than science, other than astronomy, in these small planetariums around the country. And these small planetariums typically don't have the budget to produce the kind of programs that the big ones do. And so they license at great expense, they license programs from the big ones. There should be an authoring system, which looks like the geekiest workstation ever. You sit there with a bowl over your head. There should be an authoring system based on Unity where you can create programs and previsit. I was in Denver 2 weeks ago for a planetarium conference, and outside their planetarium they had this. This is like about 2/3 of what I have to put together. It's a 5-foot acrylic dome. It's the smallest, the biggest dome that you can order online right off the shelf. So the idea is to have something very cheap that you can author in. So we say, you know, what's this got to do with Unity? Well, some of the first steps we did had to do with Emily Dickinson. We got an NEA grant and did a program for the big read that we called Emily and the Hood. And she looks a little punky. We had a Twitter feed that was Emily tweeting as if she had just arrived in the East Village. And I used some of the art to do some of my first kind of experiments with with using Unity for the dome. So down at the bottom there, you see for the first time here this fisheye lens on a Unity scene. This was the simplest of little games. I didn't think much of it. You just walk around Emily's house and garden and you read floating poems. But our staff took this out to kids in elementary schools and they went crazy. They must be bored out of their skulls. But it just showed me that I knew enough about Unity to put this fisheye lens on there. I didn't invent the fisheye lens. I got that online. I'll tell you a couple of things about the technical part of this as much as I can. So there's Emily. And here's Emily with some of her friends from a modeling class we did with teenage girls. And that's kind of a boxy recreation of the Brooklyn Academy of Music, the theater behind. So what I want to do, you know, you can do anything in a planetarium. You can do anything with Unity. One of the things I want to do is create a virtual theater so we can have performers come in and create a control system. I don't know if David Helgeson is still here. I wanted to send something out. Oh, there you are. Matt mentioned OSC. It's broken in 3.0. But you can't even get it to, no, you can't even get it to work in the editor. I'll tell you, I filed a bug. I filed a bug. Because this is going to be important. I want to be able to sit in the dome and with my iPad control over OSC all of the lighting, the objects, the animations, whatever comes in. So OSC is going to be really important. This isn't a very exciting still, but I've started to work on something that might be our first show in our dome, which is a story of early New York. We had an archaeological study done, which was required before we could build. And we now know about the family that was living on the site in the 1830s, which was a shipbuilding family. 2 minutes? Which was a shipbuilding family, and so I'm working on something about the ships of that period. So very quickly, I'll go through the rest of this. Other dome experiments. This was my first experiment in rear projecting into a dome, the Domelodian or Dominator, if you would rather. And we used this. Speaking of Maker Faire, we had Girlzilla, a giant robot with a rear projected eye. So how does this warping for the dome work? I haven't got much time here. You can find these things online. The pioneers of warping software are Paul Bork, and then the team of Shimizu, Terhorst, and McConville. Yesterday, by chance, I met Jim Terhorst, who's sitting up here. Jim, can you wave your hand? he did the coding of the Unity plugin. So he created the Unity plugin, and at the Unity plugin called Omnity. Paul Bork has his own version. Let me quickly go through some slides here. Just Google Bork and Unity or Unity and Dome. You'll find all this stuff. Bork also came up with a scheme to project off of a spherical mirror so you don't have to buy an expensive fisheye lens. This is a precedent that Bork cited, that apparently in Germany they had a crazy projection system off a spherical mirror. So believe me, it works. You can project off of these domes. There's Bork's thing. So essentially what happens is you have multiple projectors, and multiple cameras. Their images are being rendered to a curved mesh, and the mesh forms a hemisphere. You shoot that with a final camera, and that becomes that circular, warped fisheye lens. The Illuminati, if you look for Illuminati, these guys do a lot of great work. They built something, they make this thing called a portal, which is half a dome. They did a cave art thing at the Field Museum that I saw in their dome in Milwaukee. It's fantastic. They do a lot of stuff with NASA. And they do simulations. Here's a flight simulator where somebody's flying through this. So anything you can build in 3D in Unity, you can project onto a variety of surfaces. And the Omnity plugin from Illuminati, I can tell you how to get this. I hope a lot of you download it and play it, because 2 years from now, I want some great stuff to show in the dome. You can also project stuff in using equirectangular spherical photography. You can Google equirectangular and find that. And you can do fisheye time lapse. And so that's why I'm shooting fisheye around here, just getting familiar with that. So where do we want to go with this? Dome-to-dome gaming. We want to have networked domes playing multiplayer games in an immersive environment. So give me a hand. Thanks.
So we have time for maybe like 1 or 2 questions kind of aimed at the room or aimed at any of the speakers. Raise your hand, we'll get a microphone to you. Too many minds are blown. All right, well, thank you very much for coming, guys.